What I saw this morning, the waning crescent of the moon. Hello, everyone. My name is Al Person. You can contact me at pastor@mascot.church or in the comments below. If you've happened on this video as a standalone, you'll find it on a playlist. Go back to the intro and you'll understand why I've done these videos and how they're grouped. They're grouped first from a theological point of view and then from an observational one in response to some other material that was out there. Now, all of that you'll find in the introductory video. Well, this morning on my run, I wish I'd had my camera. It was spectacular. It's the 18th of April, and it's autumn here where I'm living. I looked up and I could see the moon, the waning crescent of the moon, just that last little sliver. And where the light was on the moon, where that light side was pointing to the sun that had just not yet come up, was just on the way, just rising over the horizon. The other thing that was interesting was at the same time, there was a jet plane flying eastward, kind of just a little bit, not so much toward the sun, a bit to the right. And here are the observations. And this is just really fascinating in this whole model of the round earth, flat earth kind of thing. I don't even know why I'm doing these, but here we go. The jet stream below the jet was illuminated. It was very bright. It was like yellow. You could see it. Of course, also looking around, some clouds were illuminated from the bottom and some were still dark. Now, what's the explanation for that? Well, some would say, well, because the sun is very low and it was like way under the jet. Now, that would be really ridiculous because that jet is only a few hundred meters up when you could see that is where it was. So no, that's not, I don't know how far it really was up, but I could see the jet make it out and the jet stream probably a couple of Ks up in the air. So what caused the illumination of the jet stream underneath? Is it that the sun is so low, just so low in the sky, that it actually is under the jet? Well, I could have called my friends in New Zealand and said, hey, you had the sun a couple of hours before me. Was the sun really, really low so it would be underneath the jet? They'd say, Al, you're being an idiot here. Never, no. Well, there's only really a good explanation for that. And here's this wonderful little globe that Annette bought me here just recently. And so I am kind of here-ish, over here, the east side of Australia, and I have a view out over the water. Well, as I was looking out over the water, I could look up and I could see the moon that was waning, pointing to the sun. And I could also see that light was coming from very, very low, really low. But how could it? If the earth is flat and the sun is above the earth somehow, that light would not come from, or would it? Oh, I don't know. Well, the only real explanation, of course, the obvious one here, is that as the earth rotates towards the sun, while it's away from the sun, the horizon obscures the sun, and as it comes a little bit closer and continues to come around, all of a sudden the sun appears before the horizon, or at the horizon. But prior to that happening, the moon, which is higher, sees light from the sun. It can get it. Also, things that are higher are going to be illuminated underneath from the light that has yet to be on the surface. Now, something else really, really wonderful happened while I was looking at this, and I was running. I was just admiring the beauty of that. So I looked and I could see the sun coming up. I watched the jet. I glanced at the moon, and then I'd look at the sun, look at the jet, and look up. The moon had gone, just disappeared. Well, why had it disappeared? The only explanation for that is that the moon is illuminated now on its other side, fully on its other side. And it's dark to us. We don't see light coming off it here. It's not reflecting any more light because of the position of the sun and the moon. But it's fascinating. I looked up and, where's the moon? Where's the moon? Bam, gone. All right. And only in orbital mechanics do we easily demonstrate, can we easily do that. We can predict that to the second, by the way, to the second. And as we've understood orbits, we've understood the elliptical nature of orbits and the inclinations of the planet and so on. Bam, those predictions get super, super precise, and that's really cool. Now, there's a second part to this video, and it has to do with something that Dave said in one of his videos. And because I'm just doing this ad hoc, I don't do the time marker, but I will get the time marker, and I'll put it in the comments below. There's this thing flat earthers have said for a long time. And it sort of goes like this. Well, the Earth is flat, and if you if you're flying over the Earth, if you don't adjust your altitude, you don't always adjust and compensate for it, an airplane is going to just simply fly straight off into space. I've heard them say that. I was a bit surprised to hear that in these messages that I'm connecting to as well. So let me just repeat this again. They're saying that when an airplane flies, it constantly has to, if it nose down, or whatever, and because they're not nosing down, they're just going to continue to fly straight. Now fly straight off into space. And it's like, so let me just comment about that for a moment. Now, I have had flat earthers say we should never use that argument because it's stupid. But here we go. The first thing you need to understand about airplanes and about aviation, I think you understand this, you should observe this, is that aviation is absolutely obsessed with one thing. Obsessed. What is that? Altitude. A plane's distance from the ground is dead critical constantly. Why? Airplanes file flight paths, and the flight path determines where it's going to be, how high it's going to be. Traffic control towers continually tell airplanes what altitude they need to be at constantly. The other thing about this is kind of also important, not only the flight path and the altitude that's important, is that once you are once you have an automatic pilot, the system adjusts all the time, and it adjusts for altitude, it adjusts for wind speed, and so on. Now, on a big plane, the automatic pilot, the minimum rate of adjustment is a few times a second, 5 to 6 times a second. Those are some of the larger control surfaces. The larger surfaces are adjusting about 15 times a second. 15 times a second, constantly buzzing and adjusting all the time. The automatic pilot is really involved. Now, even if you didn't have an automatic pilot and you flew it manually, you would also be adjusting. Not that many times, but you're always looking at the horizon. You're always making this little adjustment. Sometimes you need to adjust down, sometimes up because of winds that are there. So you lose any sense of, am I constantly accommodating the curve of the Earth? You just lose any sense of that. Oh, just got a message through on my phone, and that's okay. That's if you heard that. And so that's kind of madness. Now, here's an interesting thing how you can apply this yourself in your own life journey and things that you see. Imagine that you're on the road and you're driving. It's a long, long road, and you perceive the road to be very straight. And let's say you're the driver. You perceive the road to be very straight, looks all fine. And then you get up on a hill a little bit, and you look back, and you realize that road really wasn't arrow straight. It had gentle curves in it. Just gentle curves, maybe curves around a bit of a hill or whatever. It said the road meandered a little bit, but when I was driving it, I didn't even notice that I made those adjustments. Okay. Now, any adjustments that you can see with the eye are significantly greater than any adjustment that you would need to make to accommodate the curve of the Earth, because the Earth is much larger. Those things are impossible to see from the ground, okay? But you see that all the time. You'll make adjustments. You say, I didn't even realize that I did that. I didn't even realize I veered to the left for what may have been a couple of miles, and then I veered gently to the right. This road kind of curved. Well, think about an airplane now. These constant adjustments keep it in place all the time, altitude-wise. Okay, I'll pop timeanddate.com back on the screen here. This is a supplemental video. It's kind of one of those answering that main point about airplanes, heights, altitudes. Let me just make the statement again that you hear flat earthers say, and Dave does allude to it. If you're flying in a big airplane and you don't continually adjust for the curve, you're going to fly off into space. Therefore, because airplanes fly straight, eventually they'll just fly straight off into space. Hey, there's another problem with this, guys. It's an unbelievably, if an airplane that's at altitude, let's say 30,000 feet, whatever, if it does continue to climb, the engine efficiency of that plane will fall off dramatically. That argument is just silly from beginning to end. Because let's say that you kept that altitude and you said, we're not going to adjust for the curve, we're just going to keep on flying straight. And so in time, over a long period of time, several miles, the plane will gradually increase in altitude. Now, over time, and it won't take very long, the air will get thinner and thinner and thinner, and the engine efficiency will change. And ultimately, it's not going to be able to fly that high anyways. Airliners just can't get to that height. Fighter planes get a bit higher, spy planes a bit higher, and so on. But it'll get to the maximum place in its distance from the Earth, and it simply won't efficiently function, and the plane will come down. So when a flat earther says something like, oh, you know, planes have to adjust, you can look at them with a furrowed brow and say, do you understand anything about this at all? Okay, so this is a supplemental video. I'm going to pop this screen, timeanddate.com, back on the screen. This is really a great resource. This one will tell you the phase of the moon, where it is, what's going on, and what to look at, what to see. Over here, you can see that I saw the waning crescent. Maybe, oh, you can see my mouse moving here. And that was that tiny little sliver. You can see the date, you can see the position, you can see the angle. Well, how do we know all these things? Well, we know it because of orbital mechanics. We know it because we understand the orbits. We understand their position in the sky. We understand the angles. We understand the ellipsis. We have the arithmetic, and it works every single time. All right, there's other videos here in this range, in this playlist, and this one was just a last-minute recording. Just had to do it. Here we go. We will be back soon.